Hey YouTube, man, we back with Netty Yachts, man. It's your boy TJ, man. Make sure y'all like and subscribe, man. The Arizona Cardinals have one big problem. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, but the Cardinals, boy, y'all need to get it together. But I feel like Jonathan, boy, you better get it together, boy. This might be your last season coaching, boy. Boy, y'all don't make it to the playoffs, boy, you might be
The
out of there.
Arizona Cardinals finished the 2024 season with an 8-9 record and missed the playoffs for the third time in
And I
4
feel like
years and
Kyler
the eighth
Murray,
time
though.
in
I
the
feel like
last
if y'all don't
9
make the
years.
playoffs or
But
have a
despite
good
missing the
season,
playoffs last year, the
you might
Cardinals
gotta
had a lot of
release Kyler
positive things
Murray
to
or
take
trade
away
him.
from the 2024 season. They had a positive point difference despite finishing 8-9. They started to establish who they want to be as a team moving forward as they finished second in the entire NFL in yards per carry, and they even swept the division rival San
That
Francisco
boy James Conner was
49ers.
nice
But it
though
was not
last
all
season.
sunshine and rainbows for this team as they started out 6-4 and were in a
Yeah,
prime
and y'all
position to
y'all
win
don't
the
have
NFC
like the
West and
best
make the
of the
playoffs,
roster, but
only to
like
lose 5 of their final 7 games and not
mm,
only miss the playoffs, but end up with a losing record. Now, full transparency, I like everything the Arizona Cardinals are doing, and I believe they are doing
Buda
mostly
Baker might
everything
need to
right
get up
from a
out of there
process
too though,
standpoint in terms of how to build a franchise. But
cause
heading
he ain't
into the
winning no Super Bowl with the
2025
Cardinals.
season,
I'm
I have
sorry.
one big concern for the Cardinals. And in today's video, we're going to break down what that concern is, how we got to
That
where
boy
we are
Marvin
today,
Harrison
and everything
hard
in
though.
between. And there is a lot to break down in today's video,
That's
and
y'all
without
bright
further
future.
ado, let's begin.
That's their future right there.
And we are starting today's video by discussing what Cardinals general manager Monty Ozenfort and head coach Jonathan Gannon have done since taking over back in 2023. And whenever teams hire new
You got
general managers
Jonathan
and
Gannon. You
coaches,
don't get
I
it
think
right
one of the
this
biggest
season,
things that
man. I
has to
feel
be
like you gotta
remembered
go.
is
I ain't
where
gonna lie.
each guy came from. And in
I feel
Ozenfort's
like
case,
Cardinals
he was
gotta
with the Titans from
they gotta
2020
get
through
you up out of there.
2022, and Gannon was with the Eagles in 2021 and 2022. And one of the common themes with the Titans and Eagles during this time period was both teams like to run the football and play good defense. And obviously, the Titans were on a downward trajectory as Ozenfort was leaving as they traded A.J. Brown to, ironically, Gannon's Eagles during the 2022 draft. And I do think it's safe to say Ozenfort left at the perfect time. But the reason we bring this up is because both of those organizations prioritize trench play, and that's what we've seen with the Cardinals since Ozenfort and Gannon were hired. And in terms of a collaboration of how each guy's mind operates with how they want to build their football team, I don't think there's many duos that are on the same
I
page
know
the
they
way I
hate
believe
chasing this
Ozenfort
nigga,
and
bro.
Gannon are with each other and with every football decision. And this started with the selection of Ohio State offensive tackle Paris
Paris
Johnson
Johnson.
back in 2023. And through 2 years, Paris has been a really good tackle, and he improved significantly from his rookie season to his second season, and I legitimately believe he is their left tackle of the future. But why I also believe in the vision of the Arizona Cardinals is because I don't
23
think this
pressures
team
allowed,
panics
4
when they're on
sacks
the
allowed.
clock,
Yeah, he was
and they have a
good for
really
them.
well thought out process with their draft board and how everything plays out. And during the 2023 draft, they traded back with the Texans, who were coming off of a terrible season in 2022, and acquired their 2024 first round pick so they could go up and get Will Anderson. And I remember thinking at the time that there was a real chance Arizona would have 2 top 10 or 12 selections in the 2024 draft because I didn't think Houston would have that good of a season in 2023. Now,
Yeah,
I was
I ain't
wrong
think
about
Houston
that,
was
but the
gonna be good
process
either
to
though.
trade back and to
That's
acquire
crazy
another
how that
first round
team
pick for
just
moving back
went
9 spots
bad to
was still
good
very
just like
good
that, but
and
that's
one I
crazy.
100% agree with. And even in the second round of
No,
2023,
I
when
don't
Will
think
Levis
nobody
dropped,
expected Houston to
the
be good
Cardinals
that
traded
year.
back a couple of spots to acquire a third round pick in 2024 and eventually drafted LSU pass rusher BJ Ojolari in the
BJ
second round of
Ojulari.
2023. I am a big BJ Ojolari fan and I loved him coming out of LSU, and unfortunately he tore his ACL
I
prior
think
to
he
the
played for the
2024
Giants.
season
Nah, yeah.
starting. And unfortunately, that is a reality of football, is injury. I hope EJ Ojolari comes back and plays at a high level in 2025 and beyond, because I really do think he has a lot of potential. But to go back to the origins of each guy in charge in Ozenfort and Gannon, it's not a coincidence the first 2 picks of this era were both used entrenched players.
Cardinals, I feel like
Although
y'all gotta
third-year
build
receiver
more
Michael Wilson
around
is obviously not a
Kyler
trench
Murray.
player, he is a high-effort guy and a player who is not afraid to run block and do the dirty work, and that's the type of football players coaches love. And entering the 2023
Y'all gotta
season,
get more
everyone
receivers though, cause Romy and Wilson, bro, that ain't gonna cut it. Romy and Wilson ain't gonna cut it. He ain't gonna cut it. You need to get Trey McBride, yeah. But Romeo and Wilson ain't gonna cut. You need to get more receivers to help out Marvin Harrison. Grab like Keenan Allen or something out of free agency. Grab somebody. Cause help Marvin Harrison, now he get double teamed down there every play.
Knew it was going to be a long year for the
Marvin
Cardinals
Harrison get
because
double teamed
Kyler
down there
Murray
every
tore his
play.
ACL so late in the
Cause that's like the
2022
only threat
season.
they got.
He
Nobody
tore his ACL in
threat
week
Romy
14
and
of
Wilson.
2022
Come on,
and
bro.
didn't return until week 10 of
I'm
2023.
just being real.
And both Gannon and Ozenfort knew 2023 was going to be a long year because they knew they weren't going to have their franchise quarterback for a good portion of their first season, and knew that the 2023 draft was going to be one where they needed to raise the floor of the franchise and to draft with a long-term vision in mind, and they did exactly that. Now, not surprisingly, the Cardinals did not have a good record in 2023, and to at least be fair to Arizona, I would not expect them or anyone to have a good record when your starting quarterback misses the first 9 games of the year.
What?
Really, in the best
They
case
had
scenario,
damn
you're
Caleb
hoping for
Toom and
maybe a 3-6,
Caleb Toom.
maybe 4-5 start if your starting quarterback goes down, and then at that point, you almost have to win out or at worst lose 1 game the rest of the way just to get into the dance, and unfortunately, it didn't work out for Arizona, and again, I wasn't expecting a lot from them heading into the 2023 season. But for the Cardinals organization to move on from Steve Keim and to be able to bring in Monty Ozenfort,
Damn, that boy had beefy as hell.
with the
God,
situation
that boy
they
got
were in,
lumps on
knowing
his
that
shit.
Kyler was going to miss a good chunk of the 2023 season was a big win for them. And again, I cannot praise their thought process for what they did in the 2023 draft enough, and ultimately what they did in the
I don't know. I
2024
feel like
draft. They had
I feel like y'all ain't built around Kyler enough though to like. I don't know. I feel like y'all ain't built around him. And I feel like y'all need to build around him. This season, y'all need to build as much as y'all can around him and see if he could go to the playoffs. If he can't, release him.
8 selections in the top 104,
Release
and
him
they
or trade
selected
him.
my number 1
Or
overall
trade
player
him.
in the class in Marvin Harrison Jr., and that was a pre-draft ranking, by the way. And they also selected guys like Darius Robinson, Max Melton, and one of my personal favorite players, Trey Benson, the running back from Florida State, who did not have a big impact in his rookie year, though I certainly expect him to have a much bigger impact in 2025 and beyond as he gets more accustomed to the NFL.
And
as,
then
of
y'all
course,
got Will
as James
Johnson. I
Conner
don't know
gets
how
older, as he
Will
was
Johnson
drafted
fell
all
to
the
the
way back
second
in
round. That's a
2017.
steal right there.
Throughout this video, we've
That's a
talked a
real
lot about what the
steal.
Cardinals have done right from a process standpoint
That
since
boy
letting
James
go of
Conner. I
Cliff
don't know how
Kingsbury
we
and
lost
Steve
to
Keim
these
at the end of
niggas,
the
bro.
2022 season, and since they
Like,
brought in Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ozenfort. And to be clear, the good far outweighs the bad with what the Cardinals have done from a process standpoint in the past 2 years. And I credit Monty Ozenfort for having a lot more hits than he does misses. But the one big thing as to why I think the Cardinals are going to be a limited team moving forward is the inconsistency of Kyler Murray. Kyler will have a game or two a year, and he had one against the Rams in week 2,
know what I'm saying?
in
Like
which he had
Kyler
just
Murray,
4
like
incompletions and
inconsistent.
had
Like
3 passing touchdowns,
he'll
in which
have
the
some
Cardinals put
games
up
to look like
41
damn, he a
points,
top
and he
quarterback.
looked
And he'll
like an
have some
MVP
games
candidate
like
in that
damn,
game.
like this
That
nigga
was
trash
also
as
the Marvin
hell.
Harrison 4-reception, 130-yard, 2-touchdown game for anyone wondering. Kyler will then have a streak of 14 games like he did during the 2024 season, where he averages just 227 passing yards per game and has just 13 touchdowns to 11 interceptions in the ensuing 14 games, and the Cardinals go 6-8 in the process and ultimately were not good enough to make the playoffs this past year. Now, it was a bit of a funky year where there were several teams that had 11-plus wins, and there were 2 14-plus win teams in the conference, and there were also 2 10-plus win teams in the NFC West. So I will give the Cardinals a little bit of a pass for not making the playoffs this year, but ultimately when it mattered most, when the Cardinals could strike while the iron was hot. They were 6-4 heading into the bye, and then they got swept by the Seahawks in 2 of the first 3 games coming off of the bye, which set the tone for the remainder of the season. The only 2 wins they had in the final
One
7
thing about
games
Kyler
were a
Murray though, he gonna
30-17
run for
win
his
over the
life.
Patriots, who have since fired Gerard
Hey, I ain't gonna
Mayo,
lie.
and a
That's
win
what I'm saying. I really can't blame Kyler Murray because y'all ain't really built around him. I ain't really, but y'all got James Conner, Roman Wilson, and one deep threat, Marvin Harrison. That ain't gonna get it done. Y'all gotta do more than that.
over the 49ers in week 18 that was ultimately meaningless.
So it's
because
really
the
hard to
49ers started
blame
Josh
Kyler,
Dobbs, and
really.
the Cardinals entering that game were
Y'all
7-9 and were
defense sheiks
mathematically
besides
eliminated
Buda
from the
Baker.
playoffs. And the main reason that I bring up the week 2 game against the
Y'all
Rams,
got
in which he
Calais
had
Campbell
3
back. He
passing
left
touchdowns
us to go
just
back to the
4
team that
incompletions, and
drafted him.
ultimately the week 18 game against the Niners, in which he had 4
Bullshit.
passing touchdowns and the Cardinals put up 47 points, which was by far their season high, is because Kyler had 7 of his 21 passing touchdowns in 2 games. And
Yeah,
there was
Kyler
a
gonna get
huge
up out
chunk
of there though.
where he was not a bad player
He a
necessarily,
quick ass nigga
but
though.
he was not the player that they paid a couple of
3
off
for
seasons ago,
17.
and that's where my concern lies with Kyler Murray
13
and the
passing
Cardinals entering
touchdowns, 11
25.
interceptions.
And
Damn.
for reference, the 47 points the Cardinals scored in Week 18 was a significant outlier relative to who they were for the other 16 games, and really 15 if you want to exclude the Rams
I
game.
knew Marvin
Though
Harrison
I do
gonna
want to
be a
give proper
dog though,
credit
for
because they
sure.
played their tails off in Week 2
They
against
just
the
gotta get
Rams.
another
But
receiver
that
with him though.
47-point
He get double
outburst
teamed down
in
there
Week
every
18
time.
against the 49ers really propelled them up in points per game as they finished 12th in
And
points per game last year.
it will open
And
it
if
up
they had their
more for
average,
Marvin
which was weeks
Harrison
1 through
too.
17, that was around
More
22 points
one-on-one
per game.
matchup looks.
If they
All
scored
that.
22 points in that game instead of 47
And
or
it'll
maybe
open
even
it up for
23
Trey
or 24,
McBride.
they would have finished 16th or 17th in points per game last year. And I think there's a big difference heading into a new season of, hey, we're coming off of a year in which we finished 12th in points per game versus we were middle of the pack, which is really where we were from weeks 3 through 17 last year, and ultimately having one big outlier game in which we forced multiple turnovers, and credit to Arizona for capitalizing off of those turnovers in Week 18 against a backup quarterback. But the point is, I don't think the Cardinals have that high-end ceiling with Kyler Murray as their starting quarterback, because he will have an outburst of a game or two per season and then ultimately be a mediocre quarterback for the remainder of the season.
Yeah. Like I'm saying, Kyler Murray inconsistent, bro. Like some games he'll look like a top 10 quarterback, and some games he'll look like pure shit. I don't know what's wrong with him.
While Kyler Murray being as inconsistent as he is at times scares me, so
and then you
does
got
the division
Romeo
the Cardinals
Wilson as a
play in.
receiver too.
From
You ain't
top
gonna
to
win no
bottom,
games
I really
like that.
think the NFC West is at worst the third best division in football, and again, that's at worst. And the only divisions I think you can argue are better are the NFC North and the AFC West, and again, this is from top to bottom. There is no team in the NFC West where you look at your schedule at the beginning of the year and circle the Cardinals, Rams, 49ers, or Seahawks as an easy win.
Buddha requested a trade, a Falcons,
by a touchdown
Cardinals
or more.
fan. Y'all let me know
Now,
if Buddha
some teams
requested
may
a
have
trade
their
or not.
numbers, but there's a reason
I
three
think
teams
he
in this
did.
division won 8 games last year, and there's a reason the Rams were the closest to beating the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2024 playoffs. The Rams are at a point with Sean McVay and Matt Stafford where they can start out slow, and as long as they don't lose 7 games and are still in a position where they can win
Stafford gonna be a Hall of Famer for
I'm
sure.
not going to stop believing in them unless there are unforeseen circumstances, like
Stafford.
major injuries, for example. And in a lot of ways, I think the Rams and Cardinals are very similar teams. Both teams love to run the football, and both teams specifically over the past few years have really prioritized the trenches, and it's shown. The Rams are coming off of a year in which they
I'm glad that boy Jared Verse, boy, that boy Jared Verse like that, boy. I gotta give it to him.
And all Jared Verse did in his rookie year was finish top 4 in the NFL in pressures,
Jared Verse,
make the Pro Bowl,
boy.
and win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. And Braden Fisk had 51 pressures, led the team in sacks with 8.5, forced
Imagine
2
if
fumbles,
Aaron
and finished
Donald
third
still
in
was on the
Defensive Rookie of the Year
Ram.
voting.
Donald Verse.
And I love talking about defensive line play and how teams can dictate
Damn,
games in
but
the
that would've been
trenches,
crazy.
and the Rams are certainly a shining example. And the point of bringing the Rams up is they are a very high floor team.
Rams, and
being
they
in the
got
same division as the
Devontae, Puka
Cardinals genuinely
Nacua.
stinks for
But the
Arizona,
Rams,
because at this point in time,
even though
I
they
think the
traded
Rams
Cooper
are a
Kupp,
tier
damn,
above the
Cooper
Cardinals.
Kupp.
And what's really
Cooper Kupp with the
unfortunate for
Seahawks,
Arizona is they play their final game
with
of
Sam
the year at
Darnold,
SoFi Stadium in
Smith,
LA.
Jifton,
And I'll
Booga.
be honest, if it came hell or
Remember,
high
they got
water
some
for the NFC West in
Seahawks
a Week
kinda
18
nice, too.
showdown, I would choose Sean McVay over Jonathan Gannon, and so would a lot of other
any
people.
day, any day.
And as we
Sean
discussed,
McVay
it's
over
not
John
like the
again,
Rams
any
are the
day,
only good
nigga,
team
any
in this
day, nigga.
division. We did a video a
Hell
few weeks
yeah.
ago on the Seattle Seahawks and how they too are doing a lot of the right things from a process standpoint, and I'll be honest, I don't know how much their record will change from 24 to 25. Seattle
I ain't like
is,
Kyler Murray.
but their
I've
defense
been
is
watching some
taking a lot
Cardinals
of
games.
steps
That
in the
boy
right
be running for
direction,
his life
and I am
every
also a firm
play.
believer in everything Mike McDonald
Y'all
is
gotta
doing
get a
from a
line from
coaching
him.
perspective, and he only adds the fuel to the fire that is the NFC West. And Seattle too is a very high floor team. San Francisco is a true wild card because of the year they had in 2024, and given that they are going to go through a roster turnover period
And San
relatively
Francisco
soon,
lost
as long
half
as
of
they
their
don't
star
have an
players.
injury-filled year like they did last
I mean, they
year,
kept
and also with
CMC,
tragedy
George
off
Kittle,
the field too for not just one but multiple
Christian
players, I
McCaffrey.
don't think they're going to be a 4 or 5 win team
Devo
as
got
long as
there,
Kyle
you know, the
Shanahan
Commanders.
is their head coach. And this isn't to say that, oh, well, let's just throw in the towel before the season starts because our division is going to be really good and we can't stand up against those guys. No, but it is to emphasize just how loaded the NFC West is and to show how much of a bloodbath this division is going to be. And this isn't going to be the same old Cardinals playing at 405
Look at
Eastern
Kyler,
that
bro.
you just throw on as background noise as they get beat by another NFC West team. This is a really good team in a really competitive division. Now, about 2 weeks ago, we did a video titled 4 Head Coaches on the Hot Seat Entering the 2025 Season, and to a lot of people's surprise, I included Jonathan Gannon
Yeah,
within that
Jonathan
video.
Gannon
I
definitely
knew
on
at
the
the
hot
time we would
seat.
do a Cardinals
Definitely on the
video
hot
at a
seat.
later
I'm
point,
gonna
to
feel
which
like
we
he
are
going
now
after
discussing
this
the
season.
Cardinals
Them Cardinals have
situation.
another bad
And the
season after
biggest
this
reason
season.
that I
It'll be
included Jonathan
surprising
Gannon
me.
within
His
that
ass ain't
video
fired.
is I think there is a very real reality where the Cardinals finish 7-10 or 8-9 in 2025, not because they don't have a lot of talent, but because of how loaded their division is. And like we saw last year, Kyler Murray folded in a lot of big games.
I feel
Whether it was
like
the Seahawks
Cardinals,
game in which he threw 2 first-quarter interceptions that
because
were,
that's
in
the
my opinion,
Rams,
pretty inexcusable,
Seahawks.
as he flat out did not see a defender on the first one, and the second one was a very preventable interception.
And
It was
Cardinals might
2nd and
finish
9,
last.
and Kyler was under pressure, and he just threw a Hail Mary ball and basically said, please go get the pass, and unfortunately his receiver did not go get the pass, and it set the Seahawks up with an opportunity to have a double-digit lead in the first quarter, and that is exactly what happened. So my biggest fear is that the Cardinals finish 8-9 or 7-10 this year, and at that point, Jonathan Gannon would have a 19-32 or 20-31 record through the first 3 years of his tenure as the Cardinals head coach, and he would also be coming off of 3 straight years in which he did not make the playoffs.
Well, y'all
and at
go
that point, I think there would be a very
7-10,
real
another losing
conversation
season.
of,
Fire
Jonathan, we
Jonathan
appreciate
Gannon.
everything you're
Y'all
doing,
need to
but the
cut
results
Kyler
are not
Murray and
there,
just
and we're
start
going
all
to have
over,
to
bro.
make a change. Now, full transparency, I hope that that is not the case, because I do believe in Jonathan
Trade
Gannon,
Buda
and I do
Baker. He
believe in
don't
everything
deserve
that
to
he's
be in
doing
that.
as the Cardinals head coach.
Buda
and
Baker
that, again,
deserve better,
both
bro.
him and Monty Ozenfort are doing everything right from a process standpoint, but the bottom line is I don't believe in Kyler Murray when it matters most. Now, regarding Kyler Murray, I don't want to get into the conversation of, well, guess what? Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow don't have Super Bowl wins either, so do you trust them when it matters? Because that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is Cardinals fans are not as hostile or as vocal as other fan bases online, so I think at times Kyler's lowlights or mistakes fly under the radar and people kind of dismiss Kyler at times or forget about him, and then you have a 14-game stretch like he had in 2024 where he has just 13 passing touchdowns to 11 interceptions despite being paid north of $45 million per year, and ultimately that's why I don't believe in the Arizona Cardinals as much as I want to. I really like what Monty Ozenfort and Jonathan Gannon have done outside of the quarterback position, mainly because they've been limited since they took over and they knew Kyler Murray was going to be tied to their jobs and that he was going to be their franchise quarterback. But here we are entering year 7 with Kyler Murray, and there's still the inconsistencies
Y'all feel like after this season,
player. And if we are entering
Kyler
year 7
Murray
with Kyler Murray,
ain't
I don't
getting
think
that
those
right. Y'all gotta get
inconsistencies
rid of
and
him.
regular mistakes he makes are going to go away anytime soon. And we're also at a point where the Cardinals are going to be too good of a team to have a top 4 or 5 pick unless they have an injury-riddled season in which 6 or 7 guys have season-ending injuries, which we of course hope does not happen. So when we look at the future of Kyler Murray in the desert,
contract
I
ain't gonna
personally
get no
don't think
better
you should give him
either.
a third contract. I think there's a big enough sample size to the point where you can say, hey, Kyler Murray's played over 80 career games, and I definitively do not think he's a top 6, 8, or 10 player at the position, to the point where we should give him a $55 million per year contract
$55
in
million?
hopes that
Nah.
he's going to lead us to the Super Bowl. I know that's a very difficult
Yeah,
decision,
it'd be
but the
stupid to do
2026
that.
draft is absolutely loaded, and at that point, I think the Cardinals would be in a good position to where they have most of the roster filled out, and again, credit to Monty Ozenfort and Jonathan Gannon for filling out the roster the way they have over the past few years, to the point where they could trade up from pick 15 or 16 or 18 really into the top 5 or 6, and if they wanted to, sacrifice a future first-round pick so that they can go get their quarterback at the future. But my biggest thing with the Cardinals entering 2025 is I do not trust Kyler Murray enough to the point where I think he elevates this team, and ultimately offensive coordinator Drew Petzing as well, to the point where they're going to be a 12 or 13 win team and win not just
12,
one,
13,
but
nah.
multiple playoff games.
I
hope
say
you
they
enjoyed
go
today's video, and if you
at
did,
best
please
8
like
and
the video,
9.
as it helps
They'll
tremendously
go
with the
8 and
YouTube
9 at
algorithm,
best.
and I cannot thank you guys enough for these
'Cause,
support. We
it's
are
not
closing in
even
on 200,000
me.
subscribers, so please subscribe to
It's
the
not
channel
even
as
me
well,
like
and until next
hating on the
time, please be
Cardinals.
safe.
But it's not even not me hating on the Cardinals or nothing, but I just don't feel like y'all have a playoff roster type of team. Like y'all ain't really up there. Like y'all still got a long way to go, and like y'all might just rebuild the whole thing over. But like y'all need to after this season y'all don't get it right, y'all just need to shut down everything, but rebuild the whole thing. Y'all need to get a this year. Y'all need to get a receiver besides Marvin Harrison, though. Y'all need a receiver beside him because Roman Wilson ain't gonna get it done, bro. Y'all need so it can take some pressure off Marvin Harrison because he a double team down there every play. I know he'll like to have some one-on-one looks, though. It'll make it better, though. take some pressure off him. But yeah, man, that's the end of the video, man. I'm out.